In today's video, we're looking at how to approach the short answer response, or SAR for short. The example we're going to be looking at is a sample question from the English 2 release test. Now, it doesn't matter if you're enrolled in English 1 or English 2, it is the same concept. So, first things first, you always want to keep the following in mind. Number 1, read the question carefully. Number 2, you want to circle keywords and be sure to use those words in your answer. You can also use synonyms to these words, if applicable, in the explanation part of your response where you would sum it up. Notice how there are also underlined words. You want to use these circled words and underlined words in your answer. So how do we do all this? We're going to use the ACE format. So, in order to think ACE, A stands for answer, C stands for cite and connect. Your cite are your citations directly coming from the excerpt, and then the connections are what you're making with your answer and your citations. And the E stands for the end. That's how you bring it all together and pretty much make sense of it all. Now that we know what format we will be using, you want to be able to think. When you use ACE, A will ask you to, or have you, restate the question and give a simple, clear, and direct answer. Be sure to include the key words from the question in your answer and your opinion. For cite and connect, you want to be able to back up your answer by providing a reasonable explanation using your own words, which would be the connection, and textual evidence, the cite. For citing, you want to add quotation marks around the embedded quote so that we know that those aren't your exact words and that they're coming from the excerpt. And then finally, in the E, you want to use a concluding word, phrase, or an emotional concluding word or phrase, and an end response. And you do this by restating or rephrasing the answer from the A part, which is the answer, in different words using synonyms or phrases that say the same thing from your answer. This is your sum up. You want to tie it all in your ending. Okay, so now we're going to see the breakdown of how it's done. So, here's your question. How would you describe Paul in the excerpt from The Custom of the Country? First things first, you want to be able to answer. So remember, restate the question and give a simple, clear, and direct answer. So an example of that would be in the bottom. I would describe Paul in the excerpt from The Custom of the Country as homesick. This is your opinion. Now, if this were an essay, this would be your thesis statement where you're answering the prompt and providing your own opinion. So, notice how we used the keywords from the prompt and you included your opinion in the bottom. So if we were to plug that into our ACE format, your answer would go at the very top. Always begin with the answer. Never start with yes, because, or no, because that is inappropriate and very juvenile. You're a big kid now. Answer the prompt. Okay, next, we're going to focus on the C part, which is our cite and connect. You want to be able to back up your answer with reasonable connections using your words and 2 or more embedded textual evidence for citing. The reason for this is that you want to be able to support your answer with evidence from the selection. So in other words, it's your words, which equals the black connection, and the author's words, which would be the cited ones in green. So here's an example on the right hand side, and if we were to apply that to our response, it would read as follows. Paul goes to his room where there was not a toy or a book or one of his dear battered relics that would help him feel more at home. So notice how in this first sentence, we found a quote that supports our answer. We used our own words in black, and we were able to embed it into our response. So you're not just simply stating, in paragraph 3, sentence number 2, so on and so forth. Again, that's very juvenile and shows lack of understanding on how to support your answer with that evidence. Now, keep in mind, your citing should be a good balance between your words and the author's. Don't overdo one or the other. So if we were to plug that into our format, the left-hand side would be our exact quotes from the excerpt, and our right-hand side would be how we're planning on making that connection with our answer. So let me show you a more real example of how this could be integrated into your response. So you're going to create a complete sentence by combining cited quotes in green from the selection with your connection in black. The easiest way to think of it is by using an independent and dependent clause to combine your cited and connected responses. So if you look at your answer, you're describing Paul in the excerpt, and using this quote from the story and your own words, you put it together like in the sentence you have in the bottom. Paul goes to his room, and this would be considered an independent clause because it's needed to complete the sentence. You have your quote from the story in green, and that would make him feel at home, which is your dependent clause, which pretty much ties these two in together. Now we move on to E, where you end your response by restating or rephrasing what your answer was in the beginning. You never want to repeat the exact same words, not unless there's no option, but the point is to use synonyms or phrases of the keywords in your answer to restate and rephrase it. And here we have an example in the bottom. This clearly shows that Paul is missing his old home because he keeps thinking everything is strange and new. So if we look at that, what's written in blue is our concluding phrase, which supports the letter E in our ACE format. And the circled words are the similar meanings of the keywords that we used in our answer, which was homesick. Notice how no quotes were used in our end or our sum up. Don't lose focus on your sum up, and don't go off subject from your answer. So let's see how this all ties in together with our response in the end. This clearly shows that Paul is missing his old home because he keeps thinking everything is strange and new. Altogether, it would look like this. I would describe Paul in the excerpt, the custom of the country, as homesick. Paul goes to his room where there is not a toy or a book or one of his dear battered relics that would help him feel more at home. Even the newness and sumptuousness of the room embarrassed him because he could not get anything dirty. As he stares at the picture of the little boy, he thinks the boy is feeling sad and lonely, being in a strange house in which none of his old things could be found. This clearly shows that Paul is missing his old home because he keeps thinking everything is strange and new. Notice how what is written in red is our answer. Green is our citations, which are direct quotes from the excerpt. What's written as black is our connection, and in blue is our ending. See how easy that was done? You can do it too. Now we're going to practice it.